What were some of the key scientific findings that you highlighted in your book that kind of led you to believe that plant-based kind of whole food diet is really the path?
Yeah. Each of those different dietary foods that I mentioned that fit in that theme, you see a lot of the very consistent results in terms of how they're affecting people's health. So, first and foremost, as you're shifting from more of a standard diet to any of those variations, you're seeing improved pressure in the realm of 10 millimeters of mercury drop in systolic blood pressure. To give people context to how important is that? Every 20 millimeter increase in systolic blood pressure, you double your risk of heart attack, stroke, or other vascular events. So we're talking about, a quarter, so 25% reduction in your risk of any of those events by adopting one of these dietary patterns if your systolic blood pressure comes down from, say, 130 to 120, where we want it.
So dietary patterns. So you're talking pescatarian, vegan, vegetarian, Mediterranean, right. those four, right? Okay.
Yeah. So, and maybe we define those if you want.
Yeah, that might be helpful. Yeah.
Like the basic premise of all of those is that whole grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, lots of fruits and vegetables, these are filling the plate.
Right.
And the Mediterranean diet, there's room in there for meat. It's usually more of like white meat and fatty fish. There's some dairy in there. And that's very similar to the DASH diet in many ways. They're
What's that acronym stand for? To just
dietary approach to stopping hypertension, I think.
Okay.
So that's similar, and there's a low sodium kind of DASH diet as well. And then vegetarian is mostly plant based. There's some dairy and some eggs, depending on the type of vegetarian diet that someone adopts. Pescatarian is that plus fish, and then a vegan diet is completely plant exclusive. But I guess we should be very clear here: you can do a vegan diet very poorly. We're talking about one that's not full of ultra processed vegan foods. It's those whole foods that make up the majority of calories. And the reason why these diets reduce blood pressure is when you're eating that way relative to a standard diet, you get a huge reduction in sodium intake. You get a big increase in potassium intake. That lowers blood volume, which lowers blood pressure.
Right.
And hypertension or high blood pressure is a huge risk factor for cardiovascular disease. We've made massive inroads in terms of reducing cardiovascular mortality. And a lot of that is through pharmacology and also reducing cigarette smoking. But if we want to squeeze cardiovascular disease out of society, we have to address hypertension. These diets help with that. We also have to address LDL cholesterol, or more specifically ApoB. Right. That's a long discussion to explore what ApoB is, but let me just say high level, this is now believed to be a much stronger predictor of cardiovascular risk than LDL cholesterol. And you can ask your physician to
listen to Peter Attia. He talks a whole lot about ApoB.
Yes, so you can listen to Peter Attia. I did a 7 or 8 hour long series with Thomas Dayspring, who Peter Attia's also had on. And that came out like 4 or 5 months ago. And it's like, if you really want to deep dive to ApoB, then do that.
We'll make sure we link to that.
But all of these diets will help lower someone's ApoB. And they do that because they have the emphasis on unsaturated fats and de-emphasize saturated fat. And just very quickly, the mechanism there is saturated fats, essentially, they downregulate a receptor in your liver and make it much harder to clear cholesterol, to clear ApoB. Whereas the unsaturated, particularly polyunsaturated fats in fatty fish, nuts, and seeds, they open up those receptors and allow you to clear more. So these diets will shift that potent risk factor in the right direction. All of these diets as well will help improve insulin sensitivity. That's through a couple of different mechanisms. One is, as you lower your body weight, you become more insulin sensitive. And naturally, when you eat the way that I'm describing, this is a lower calorie density diet. And we know that calorie density affects how many calories you're consuming over the day. So the more volume there is in your food, less calories per bite, the less calories you're likely to eat over that day. So these diets can be very good at helping someone, if they want to, lose weight as well, which helps improve insulin sensitivity. But insulin sensitivity is also improved independent of weight by the type of fat you're eating. And this is lost on people. The literature is very clear on this. Even if you're not losing weight, when you reduce saturated fat and increase polyunsaturated fats, you see improvements in blood glucose control. Insulin sensitivity improves. So you get that benefit. You'll see there are fairly robust associations with each of these diets with a lowering in inflammation. So less of, I'm talking about chronic inflammation here, not so much the acute inflammation that we want if we get injured or have an infection that we need to clear. Talking about that more low grade inflammation that causes a lot of collateral damage.
Yeah.
And
just sleep and
right. So that underpins a lot of these chronic disease processes, including dementia.
Yeah.
So that's, I guess, a bunch. Certainly not limited to those, but those are some of the big reasons why shifting to these diets really protect you against, chronic diseases that we've kind of normalized in our society, but it doesn't have to be that way.